Thank you, members and members of the public. The Subcommittee on Telecommunications and Broadband will come to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Anchia.
Here.
Vice Chair Metcalf.
Here.
Representative Hernandez. Representative Hull.
Here.
Representative McQueenie.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Quorum is present, members. Thanks for coming back. I know it's been a long day. The chair lays out as pending business Senate Bill 924. It relates to the entities that provide cable services or video services. Chair calls up Julian Ramirez, City Council Member, City of Houston, representing himself. Representing City of Houston and himself against the bill.
Yes.
And the chair also calls up Ed Van Eno, the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Austin, representing the City of Austin. Okay.
He's coming in.
Terrific. Okay, Mr. Ramirez, you are Julian Ramirez, City Council Member, representing the City of Houston and yourself, and you're against Senate Bill 924. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity to weigh in on this bill, and thank you for everything y'all do. I had a chance to hang out today, and I'm so impressed with all the work that you all put in, especially my own representative, Representative Lacey Hull. But I'm proud to represent the 2.3 million Houstonians that live in our great city. I'm an at-large council member, which means I represent the entire city, and strongly opposed to this bill. I don't want to rehash what was stated this morning. We had some great testimony from the three gentlemen, including Chair Wolins, and I would endorse their testimony and the handout that was provided by Chair Wolins. I do want to talk about fiscal impact. It was asserted by the attorney who testified this morning that there is no fiscal impact. And I suppose that with respect to the state budget, that's correct. However, for the city of Houston and for other cities across Texas, there's a huge financial impact. And I want to address that. And we're impacted in two ways. The first is this bill would prohibit us from collecting franchise fees related to cable service because it revises the definition of cable service and includes the language other services offered over the internet, including streaming content. That is not a clarification. That is a wholesale change in current law and would result in the loss of $10 million in cable franchise fees for the city of Houston. I added up the loss for cities in the Metroplex as well, and that figure comes to $19.1 million that cities in the Metroplex would lose. We can't afford to lose that money. What that means, I'll give you some examples. $10 million would pay for 253 police cadets in Houston. We have a severe shortage of police officers. It would pay for 176 full-time employees. It would pay for 138 classified employees. And so if you're wondering why I hung around for hours to testify, that's why. $10 million a year is worth fighting for. Now, that's not the only financial impact. Companies like Netflix, Hulu, and Disney have not been paying the franchise fee, and they should be. I don't know how much the city has lost out in over the years, but we need to hold those companies to account. They are multinational, huge companies that should compensate the city for their commercial use of our public right-of-way. As it stands now, the residents of Houston, all of them, are subsidizing their commercial use, their rent of our public right-of-way. Now, it is asserted that this would affect customers who pay for streaming services. And I'm sure almost all, if not all of the costs would be passed on to customers. I subscribe to Netflix. I'm happy to pay the few cents per month that this would add to my bill. I don't subscribe to Disney or Hulu, and I'm not interested in subsidizing the commercial use of the right-of-way for those companies. And I will tell you, many, if not most, of the residents in Houston cannot afford to pay for Netflix, Hulu, and Disney every month. And they should not have to subsidize the commercial use of our right-of-way. And so I would ask that you not vote this bill out favorably for that reason as well. Understand there's a lot of legal argument that's being made related to this bill. It's asserted that this is just a clarification. I disagree with that. This is a tactical move in an attempt to gain a leg up in litigation. If this bill were to pass, the lawyers could go into court and perhaps convince a judge that the legislature just clarified what this law means, and it would prevent us from recovering the lost franchise fees going back any number of years. And that would be a bad thing for the city of Houston as well. It's asserted that not passing this bill would allow the cities to get franchise fees without limits. I disagree with that as well. Only those services that use our right-of-way would be required to pay the franchise fee. It's as if I go to Black's Barbecue on the way out of town and I buy some brisket. I'm going to pay sales tax on that. If I buy some sausage, I'm going to pay some sales tax on that as well. If I choose not to buy the sausage, I don't have to pay any sales tax, right? That's the way it works. It's analogous to a user fee. If you enjoy the service, then you'll have to pay a little bit of the fee. And so, again, strongly oppose this bill and ask that you not refer it out favorably, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Councilman. Members, any questions? Representative McQueenie?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How big is the city of Houston budget?
2.3 million people.
How big is the budget?
Oh, the budget. This past year it was $6.7 billion, and I'm not sure what it will be this year, coming year.
It was alluded to earlier that these fees are dwindling because people are cutting the cords in some sort of fashion. Is that $10 million? Is that a dwindling number that 10 years ago it was 30, or has it been a constant 10, or do you have any knowledge or historical data on where that is and what the projection line looks on that, or is it just a flat 10? You guys have seen exceptional growth in the city of Houston, and I'm just kind of curious where that number.
I don't have those figures. I'd be happy to provide them for you. I don't have them at hand. Our growth has really flatlined over the last several years in terms of population, however.
Over the last 15
I'd
years?
say 5.
Over the last 15, though, it has been growing.
I'd say 5.
But over 15.
I
Fair.
think there's been
Very
some
fair.
growth. Yeah,
The real
over 15
estate
years.
runs out. I get it. The real estate runs out. I got it. Thank you for being here, and thanks for waiting for us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Chairwoman Hull.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to my constituent and council member for being here and waiting all day to give your testimony. Thank you.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman, again, thanks for your patience. Just a philosophical question. I mean, some might say, well, your budget's real big. 10 million is really a rounding error on the budget. You did point out, however, that $10 million is not an insignificant amount, nor is it, I think, in our purview to say that it's a small amount for you, a big amount for us, right? You guys get to make those calls in local control. I know in Dallas, we're trying desperately due to some citizen referendums and just referenda and just some difficulty in recruiting officers to catch up on officers, and I know 10 million would go a long way. Can you repeat what that would mean in terms of law enforcement for the city of Houston, specifically law enforcement?
Sure. $10 million would pay for 253 police cadets.
Yeah.
253. And we're down about 2,000 right now.
You're in the red 2,000?
We could very much use an additional 2,000 police officers.
Wow. So that would be 10%.
That's right.
Of that entire deficit. Okay. Thanks for your testimony. All right. Chair recognizes Ed Van Eno, CFO of the City of Austin, against Senate Bill 924. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Welcome.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Chair and Chia and committee members. My name is Ed Vanino. I'm the Chief Financial Officer.
Ed, just, these mics are highly directional. If you just want to have it, there you go. Just point it directly into your voice. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ed Vanino, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Austin. I am speaking today on behalf of the city in opposition to Senate Bill 924. And as the money guy for the city, the main thing I want to stress to you is that managing the public right-of-way doesn't come for free. It's expensive. It takes money. It involves land acquisition, infrastructure installation, planning and maintenance, tree management. Trees have to be cut back so that they don't interfere with the overhead lines. And even occasionally, the entire right-of-way has to be relocated. If you think about I-35 that's going on right now, almost all of the public infrastructure along that corridor needs to be moved to accommodate the wider highway. So it is expensive, and the city's position is that all parties that are benefiting from accessing the public's right-of-way should pay their fair share of the cost. Currently, Austin residents and businesses contribute through taxes and fees that they pay. If you look at our utility companies, cable companies, telecom companies, gas companies, electric companies, they all pay a franchise fee to help pay for their fair share of the cost of acquiring and managing and maintaining that important infrastructure. Senate Bill 924 would essentially disrupt this longstanding fair share, cost-sharing model by exempting streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus from paying their franchise fees. And it creates two big problems for cities, not just Austin, Houston, but all cities across the state of Texas. The first of all is the constitutional issue you've heard from some of the attorneys who have testified. I'm not an attorney, but we've all heard from the attorneys about the constitutional concerns that large for-profit streaming services would be granted free access to the public's right-of-way in violation of the Texas Constitution. And secondly is really my wheelhouse, the fiscal concern that the legislation would allow existing cable providers to reposition their cable services as streaming services, and now all of a sudden they don't have to pay the franchise fee. For Austin, that would mean a loss of roughly $5 million per year in right-of-way fees and another $1 million in PEG fees, public access television fees. The loss of this revenue means that Austin would be forced to absorb millions of dollars in cost without compensation for the service that's being provided, and effectively, I think really importantly, effectively shifting that cost burden from multinational corporations to local taxpayers. Because at the end of the day, the right-of-way still has to be maintained, those trees have to be pruned. When there's a flood or an issue or a collapse in a right-of-way, it has to be repaired. So it's not like the cost goes away just because some folks don't want to pay their fair share of those costs. For reference, similar to what the council member from Houston was talking about, in Austin, a $6 million loss of revenue equates to 46 police officers, not cadets, but actual sworn on-the-street police officers, which of course are a little bit more expensive by the time they get to that stage. It's about 29% of our staffing for our street repair budget. It's 35% of our plan review and inspections budget, and that's a big part of the cost of all the planning and permitting that goes into managing the right-of-way. So with that, I just urge you to reject Senate Bill 924 and ensure that all service providers, regardless of the platform they're on or the technology they're using, that they contribute their fair share of the cost when they make use of the public's right-of-way. Thank you.
Representative McQueenie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same question. How big is the budget in Austin?
The budget in Austin is $1.4 billion, and I'll thank the council member from Houston because I was able to get the answer to his question really quickly. For Austin, our franchise fees in 2014 were $36.6 million. In 2024, they're $27.7 million. So about a $9 million reduction in the last decade.
The franchise fee, give me that again.
And this is all of them. This is cable, gas, electric, all the franchise fees that we pay for use of our right-of-way in 2014 was $36.6 million.
36 million, got it.
2024, $27.7 million.
How much of this is the right-of-way money we're talking about, though? This isn't electric right-of-way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
the-
can you get that? How
That
much are we
was,
talking about if this
That
were
was
to
the
go
$6
away?
million I was talking about.
Okay.
If we just lose the cable franchise fee as a result of that bill, that's $5 billion in per year in right-of-way fees and another $1 million in the PEG fees.
I'd be curious if that has declined over the years, just that piece of it. So, okay.
Yeah, and I can get you that
I appreciate
information
it.
as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, members. Any other questions of the panel? Thanks for being here today. Thanks for your testimony.
Thank
And
you.
thanks, most importantly, for your public service and patience.
Thank you, Chairman.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 924? If not, the chair recognizes Chairman Guerin to close on Senate Bill 924.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate y'all's efforts. Thank y'all for sitting this out, and I close.
Thank you. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there any objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. All right, members, thanks for sticking with us. We have one more bill to hear. So the chair lays out House Bill 2964 relating to the provision of broadband service in certain rural counties and recognizes Chairman Landgraf to explain the bill. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Anchia, and I do appreciate that you made every opportunity to accommodate us this morning, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to make that work on our end. But if I could just take about 30 or 45 minutes to...
At your leisure. However, I would like to ask Representative Hall to offer the committee substitute on House Bill 2964. After you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chair Hull, for laying out the committee substitute. That does actually bring me to a good point, is that I have been working with the Broadband Development Office, and I believe that they will be available as a resource, but we are working with them on a completely new committee substitute that's going to address some of the issues that I'm trying to achieve, or achieve some of the objectives that the original bill had, and that we're trying to achieve through a subsequent committee substitute. So just know that that will be forthcoming, and I wouldn't ask for a vote from the committee until we have that language nailed down. That being said, the reason why I'm here is that there is a ongoing broadband development project in Monahans, Texas, in my district. I think most of you had the opportunity to meet Teresa Burnett earlier today, who's a constituent of mine, who has for the last decade, really before, even before broadband development was a cool thing in the legislature, this was something that she was working on in a very small town at the northern end of the Chihuahuan Desert out in the Permian Basin. And it's been a passion project for hers. She's doing this kind of on just as a side project as being the economic development director for the Monahans Chamber of Commerce, but it's become a labor of love for her, and her enthusiasm has been contagious and infectious to me, and so I am doing everything that I can to help. And one way that I got involved with the broadband legislation that we've considered over the last couple of sessions was done with this Monahan project in mind. And so it was to our dismay when the first round of boot grants were awarded, and I presume that y'all are familiar enough with the subject matter to know what I'm talking about, that Monahans was left out. And of course, we've done a postmortem on that, and I think we've identified why that's the case. And I don't think that there's any one group, certainly not at the state level, to blame for that. There may have been some local provider issues that contributed to that problem, and then some confusion over FCC data that the BDO is required to use under some of the laws that we've passed. That being said, the goal is really just to get a few of the dollars that Monahans, I think by most reasonable interpretations, would be and could be eligible for under the various grants that are provided by the Broadband Development Office. And in working with their office, I think we may have a way to do that. I'm going to pause there. I think y'all have gotten the information in this layout and then throughout the day, also mindful of time and weather restrictions. So I'll pause there to see if there are any questions, but I do think it would be worthwhile to hear from the BDO as well.
Member, any questions? Just a quick one. Can you describe, I think you've described you described well the challenge, which was you didn't get the boot award. Mm-hmm. You figured out in an after action report what happened. Mm-hmm. What is your approach in the bill to help Monahans?
Well, so the approach is that we want to make sure that the criteria are clearly defined so that Ward County, the county where Monahans is situated, it meets all of the eligibility requirements, both in terms of population size with the amount of service that is currently provided, the amount of addresses that currently have fiber access, or just broadband access in general. And I think there's also another problem in that there's about 1 square mile. So this Monahans project is, they're in the middle of a 2-phase project. Phase 1, which was tremendously successful, almost exclusively funded by money raised locally, really to be sort of a blueprint for a small town broadband project. And there was a lot of pride in the community taken so that this could be a model that could be exported to other small communities across the state. And so phase 1, like I said, has been completed. It basically encompasses about, all told, about maybe 1 or 2 square miles. And within that area has been, we have very high rates of connectivity and service. Outside of that is phase 2, and it takes a loop approach with connection filling in from around the perimeter, and that's what the Monahans Broadband Project has sought funding for through BOOT. But I think because of, again, some of the local service provider reporting deficiencies, or maybe even over-reporting for some other purpose, that has skewed some of the FCC data and painted an inaccurate picture of the situation in Monahans that I think, in talking with the Broadband Development Office, we've been able to pinpoint some of those inaccuracies, and BDO is now working with data that I think reflects Monahans' eligibility. Of course, the problem is that the award period has already
Elapsed. Yeah.
So we're seeing if there are ways to still use the funds that were appropriated for that purpose to make sure that they can be utilized by an eligible entity.
Are you trying to move the criteria? Sorry, I'm going to ask a crude question, and I know you're not done with the committee sub, but are you trying to move statewide criteria? Or are you trying to do something in the bill that improves data collection so that Monahans is more in the money?
So,
if you're not ready to answer it, that's
If I can
fine.
be free to speak about the committee substitute that I envision, even though I am very aware that that's not.
Again, we're talking about
what's being laid
approach.
out.
Approach.
So the approach is, so my approach as the bill author is not to change statewide criteria. I really want to keep that the same, because I do think that we were thoughtful in that BDO has implemented that in a fair and effective way for the most part. And what I really want to do is achieve some clarity for counties that by almost any objective standard should have been included, but for various reasons were not.
Yeah.
Now, others who have spent far more time in this space than I have might have a different interpretation, but if I can just provide you what my intention is, it would be to, my sole intention for this limited purpose is really to make sure that communities in counties like Ward County and Winkler County, i.e. where Monahans is, would be eligible for this program that I think we can all agree what they were supposed to be.
They should be eligible.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will call you back up to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have, let's see, Teresa Burnett is registered. We're going to go, Teresa Burnett, who is the Executive Director of the Monahans Chamber of Commerce, is registered for the bill. We are going to edit that entry and show her not testifying, okay? Rather than testifying. So not testifying. And then we have Todd Baxter with the Texas Cable Association against the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Member Todd Baxter, representing the Texas Cable Association. Respectfully, and after hearing the story now, almost sadly in opposition to the bill. However, to clarify, we got a chance to speak out front, and I certainly don't want to do anything that will help him, Monahans, or anything else. But what we had to look at is, the four corners of the bill and the committee substitute, and to point out that the major concern for us was the change of eligible address, which basically says, certain locations would be eligible for funding regardless of the classification or designation of the address in any federal state broadband mapping system, and in essence, whether it is served by certain speeds, right? So basically, you have two different things you're looking at in these broadband grant programs: the areas you want to build and the technology you want that to be built under or by, and then you look back at eligible addresses to see if they're served or not by broadband, which you heard earlier today is now 100 by 20. And our concern is that we would be putting in law that even though you have addresses that are getting speeds of 100 by 20 at a minimum, and in many cases, like in our instance, you'd be getting multi-gig symmetrical speeds, right? It would still be eligible for funding. And so that, obviously is a great concern. I think there's a way to address their concern without putting this eligible address definition in state law, because that could be quite troublesome just as a general concept. So just wanted to share that. We're clearly working with the author, want to, find a way to, solve their problem without doing something that would dramatically change the way eligibility is considered under state law.
Chair Holland, any questions? Thank you, Todd. Thanks for your
Thank you.
patience today
You
and your constructive feedback for the author.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Chair calls up Greg Conti with the Broadband Development Office. He is the director. He is in the Comptroller of Public Accounts Office, and he is neutral on House Bill 2964. Welcome, and thank you for spending the day with us.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member. And good afternoon. Greg Conti, Director of the Broadband Development Office, here as a witness testifying neutral on this bill.
Greg, you and I have had extensive conversations throughout the session about, boot criteria, and we always hear from people who are out of the money, who want to be in the money, and oftentimes there are questions about methodology or process or data.
Mm-hmm.
Does this fall into one of those categories?
We're working
this
with
bill. Sorry.
This bill right now. We're working with the author as well to make sure that the bill itself addresses the legislative intent of that. There are certainly just some issues, I wouldn't say issues, but just some details with the bill as currently written that I think can use some further tweaks. And we're going to, again, continue to work with the author on that to make sure we get this to where he needs it.
Thanks. Any further questions? Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2964? If not, the chair recognizes Chairman Landgraf to close on House Bill 2964.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate working with everybody, both with the cable folks and also, and most especially with the BDO. Bottom line, we want to find a solution to the problem that we're facing in my district without creating any additional problems for anyone else. And I think after some of these most recent conversations, we have a pathway to do that, and I look forward to following down that path for as long as possible until we get resolution to it. But thank you for hearing the bill, and appreciate your time today.
Our best to Ms. Barnett. Please on-pass our appreciation for her presence today, and let her know we'll work as a committee on this issue.
Well, I'm sure she's watching right now, and I'm sure she appreciates hearing that. But she enjoyed getting to visit with y'all earlier individually. Thank you.
Thank you. The committee substitute to House Bill 2964 is withdrawn. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there any objection? Chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. Members, that concludes today's agenda. Is there any further business for the committee to address? If not, the chair moves to adjourn. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the Subcommittee on Telecommunications and Broadband stands adjourned, subject to call of the chair.